Yeah, Gurmagad Blas, Count Corla, and I'd like to thank all deputies for the contributions that I've made, to thank the constructive contributions that were made by most. It's unfortunate that some of the most vociferous opponents and most impassioned pleas made here, that the members who made them haven't remained in the chamber to actually get an answer to the questions or the points that they've actually raised. But hopefully that will be what committee stage is for. Just firstly, the most important people within this, if I could, because I will deal with regional growth in a moment and regional airports. But this bill actually provides us an opportunity to deal with a legacy issue that's there, and to frankly deal with some issues that DAA under previous management did not deal with. Like this condition was on 2 planning applications going back to 07-08. Should have been dealt with before this. It's unsustainable that it remains in place. But this cap will be lifted through this legislation in a sustainable and in a respectful way to adjacent communities. And to complement that is actually the Aircraft Noise Competence Authority, ANCA's draft decision, where they just issued last month in relation to noise, because there are real noise issues with some communities. As I said earlier on in the debate, like, listen to Deputy Coppinger and others, and Deputy Kieran Ahern of Labour, which I might speak to in a moment. But the reality is, like, I live beside the airport. Like, I represent an airport community. We know how important that airport is. And we know that in many instances, or in some instances, that relationship between the airport and some local communities has not been as it should and needs to improve further. So I think the draft regulatory decision by ANCA will be a very important one. And I've written myself directly to the airport in relation to expansion of the noise insulation scheme. We want to see that happen, and I think the ANCA decision will allow that to happen. Improvements to the voluntary purchase scheme for those directly impacted on it. And I talk about residents that I've met as well in the St Margaret's and the wider area, in the ward area, but also residents in parts of Portmarnock for noise insulation that needs to be addressed. There was also a mention, I think it's valid, Deputy Toole and some others mentioned in relation to flight paths. And I'm committing here that we will carry out an independent assessment of flight paths. There have been issues for residents where flight paths have been granted in planning permissions and they have not seen those flight paths operate as they were approved. That's not acceptable. I know that there's a retention application went in on that, but that's something I'm committing to the House here, that we'll have an independent assessment of the flight paths operated out of Dublin Airport. And Dublin Airport does, yes, need to continue to grow, and it is growing. And it underpins, as Deputy Daly said on behalf of Sinn Féin, and it's recognised, other deputies said, of how many thousands of jobs and livelihoods and families are sustained by the airport. That connectivity, international connectivity, that we derive from that as an island nation within Europe. And I'm surprised that the Labour Party spokesperson on transport needed a definition or to try to understand what international connectivity is about. So I broadly welcome the input into the debate. Residents are to the forefront of my mind. So are those residents' jobs and people's jobs. And it has been rightly raised here, because some have tried to paint it like Deputy O'Donoghue, that this was, some Dublin instead of any other airport. It's just not true. In the middle of a €200 million investment in Cork Airport at the moment. So let's look at the regional airports. Cork is up 13% from 24 to 25, 3.46 million passengers. Shannon, as Deputy Quinlan has mentioned, I've been in Shannon on a number of occasions, up 9% in passenger growth on a full year basis to 2.3, with capacity to do more and a very good capital plan. And we've actually brought now Shannon into the regional airports programme, which we've changed the regional airports programme to enable us to be able to assist and fund Shannon. Okay, so I want Shannon to grow. It is growing. I want Cork to continue to grow. It is growing, thankfully, as well. I want Ireland West Knock to continue to grow. Their numbers are up 13.5% year on year. I was at the 40th anniversary of Knock Airport, a wonderful facility there, touching on 1 million passenger journeys through there. Kerry Airport, 440,000 passengers, up about 5.5% year on year. And Donegal, critical to the northwest region as well. We've made sure that we're supporting the PSO service there and the schedule there. Really important. Now, on an all-Ireland basis, we're funding through the Taoiseach Shared Island Initiative, the PSO that will enable us to start the Dublin Derry route again. And that will be great for connectivity as well in that area. And yes, we do have Belfast International Airport as well on the island. We've got to look at this on an island basis. Some have asked, about the national aviation policy. And we committed to doing that, and we will be bringing forward an issues paper later this year, seek public consultation into a new national aviation policy, because we're world leaders in aviation. Some people want to ignore that. We've the largest airline in Europe. We've some of the CEOs of the top companies all the way across the world are actually Irish. We have great expertise in this sector, great track record in this sector too. If you look at the area of leasing, over 50% of the aircraft that fly across the world are leased in this country. Aircraft engines leased in this country. The expertise that our MRO sector have as well, underpinning tens of thousands of other jobs. And actually in Knock recently, there's a new facility open there where there's aircraft engines are being repurposed. And that's just lots of really good things happening here. We can't have a situation whereby, through a legacy planning condition, that the main international airport, I say the main, not the only, the main international airport, and an airport that is an international hub as well, is stifled in its growth. Because if we don't address this, we're not only looking at stifling its growth, if as Deputy O'Gorman seems to want, is that we go back to the 32 million cap. So we're cutting, we've 34.6 million passengers went through the airport last year. So if you cut those numbers, you're cutting jobs, you're cutting connectivity, you're cutting routes. I don't think anyone can say with any degree of honesty that that's something that the general public across Ireland, and even many of my constituents, vast majority of them support the move to remove the cap in a sustainable way. There are others who don't. Let's be straight about that too. And I respect where they're coming from. And a lot of that has been down to the way they feel and the way they have been treated over 10, 15, 20 years. And I want that to improve. The airport has to operate under a good neighbour policy. And I can assure you that with the board that's there, the interim chief executive, the management team, the new chairperson that's coming in, they're really clear about that. And they want that to happen. And in many instances they do. Not just through community benefit funds and others, but we do need to see expansion of noise insulation scheme and the other things that I have mentioned as well. National aviation policy will be important in that regard to underpin this. I can assure members that we'll work on a constructive basis through committee and remaining stages on this bill. It's a very important piece of legislation. We will, I'm committing to the House on the independent assessment that we will carry out of flight paths. But then I want to say there's those who came into the House who said there's no environmental considerations in this bill. It's not true. Absolutely not true. It's clear throughout the bill, that any decisions taken, those assessments actually will be assessed by Commissioner Pannella, not by the department, not by me as Minister, and rightly so. And again, I think I'm just surprised the Leader of the Green Party isn't very clear on our obligations under the Climate Act or international obligations under climate agreements. Is that aviation sector the emissions are not counted in that sector. And as a small island nation as we are, we don't have large industrials here. We're moving in the right direction in relation to emissions reductions. What we've also got to see is how we connect with the rest of the world and how we continue to drive growth in that sector and how we continue to ensure that technological advances in aviation continue, where we're reducing emissions, reducing fuel use, and that we look at alternative fuels, more than look at it, but look at how we can improve the blend, as Deputy O'Murray was mentioning earlier in relation to the work that we've done in SAF, one of the first European countries to come out actually with a SAF roadmap. So, look, I think that this legislation is urgent, it's priority, it's needed. I welcome the support from most of the House, not from all, to look at this very clearly in what we're intending to do. We're not intending to rip up the Planning Act in any way, shape or form. We're dealing with the legacy issue here that's fully respectful of our environmental considerations and ensuring as well that the airport operates under a good neighbour policy and improving the situation for the small number of residents who are very directly impacted. And that is something that I think that we want to operate and move this piece of legislation through in an efficient way, but in a fair and balanced way, which we will do as well. So I thank the deputies for their contribution. I thank my own team from the department who have been here and have been assiduously taking notes of contributions, as I have as well, and that will inform us as we go into the committee and report in final stages of the debate, which we intend to have next week in the Dáil, I understand, and then from there into the Shannon. So I very much appreciate people's time here today and their input into this important piece of legislation. And let's move on and get this done for the good of our country, for the good of the Dublin region as well, for the good of all of us, for the jobs that it underpins and the economic growth that it underpins as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Minister.